Chapter 4 is all about writing equations in the form y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope or the rate of change, depending on what type of problem you're working with, and b is the y-intercept. So, for number 1, you are just taking m out and putting a 7 in. You're taking b out and putting a 2 in. So y equals 7x plus 2. Same thing on number 2. We have y equals negative 2/3 x. You could put plus 0, but it's not necessary. I'm going to leave it like that just to show you that you don't need it. If you have it, though, that's fine.
Can you put the negative at the bottom?
Yeah, if you want to put the negative with the 3, that's fine. Or if you want to just put it out front, that's fine as well. As long as you just have one negative. Don't put it with the 2 and the 3. All right. Number 3, I flip-flopped the order I gave them to you just to make sure you were actually paying attention. So this is y equals 1/3 x plus 4. Number 4, your slope is negative 1, so y equals negative 1x minus 4. You could also have y equals negative x minus 4. You don't need the 1 if you don't want it. It's up to you. You could also leave it plus a negative 4, but that's kind of like the sloppier way to do it, so I would not encourage you to do it that way, but I would accept that as an answer. This is probably the most common answer. Number 5, same thing. We take m out. We put the slope in. So y equals 2/5 x minus 2. 6, again, I switched the orders just to make sure you're actually reading the problems. So y equals negative 2x plus 7. Horizontal lines look like this. However, that's not the answer. I saw a lot of you put that. That's just a picture of what a horizontal line is to kind of help you remember what you're working with. But that is not part of the answer. So I usually draw that just to show you what a horizontal line looks like, but that's not the answer. The answer is the equation of a horizontal line, which is always y equals a number. In this case, it's 6. Now, if you forget that a horizontal line is always a y equals, you can just look at what axis it's going through. If it's going through the y-axis, it's going to be a y equals line. If it's going through the x-axis, it's vertical. It's going to be an x equals line. Remember, horizontal and vertical are special lines. They have special equations. Oh, you can't really see 8. I'll put 8 up here. Sorry, I always forget that thing's down there. So this is number 8. What are your questions on 1 through 8? So 9 and 10, we're still working with y equals mx plus b. But I'm not giving you the m and the b. You have to find it. Remember, m is the slope. You could think of it as rise over run. We did number 9 yesterday? Okay, I'm just going to redo it real quick in case you missed it. So, we rise 2 and we run 2. So you have 2 over 2, which you can simplify to 1 over 1, or actually just 1. And then b is where you're touching the y-axis. You're touching the y-axis here at 6. So b equals 6. So our equation is y equals 1x plus 6. You don't need the 1. It's not super important. You could just put y equals x plus 6. That would be fine. Now, number 10 we did not do yesterday, so we'll have to definitely check that one out. M here is the rise over the run, but you're actually going down from one point to the other. So your rise is going to be a negative number. It's a negative 1 here. And then you run 3. So negative 1 over 3. And this one touches the y-axis right there at b equals negative 2. So my equation here is y equals negative 1 over 3 x minus 2. Now, you can see at the top of this page in the directions it says that each one of these is worth 2 points. That means the first page is worth 20 points. On a 50-point quiz, 20 points is a whole lot. So I definitely would encourage you to study this front page if you're still confused. What are your questions? Number 11 through 15. We're still using the y equals mx plus b. So I would encourage you, if you're stuck on these, write out y equals mx plus b. B is how much you're changing. This is your rate of change. And B is where you start. So you'll be given two numbers in each problem. You need to decide which one is your starting number and which one is your changing number. So in number 11, Karan is already 50 miles from his house. He drives 45 miles each hour, even further. So where's he starting? Yeah, he's starting 50 miles away. This is our B. And then it's changing 45 miles, so that is our M. Thank you. So my equation is y equals 45x plus 50. Now, I always encourage you to decide what x and y actually stand for. X is what is causing your change to go up 45. So you're going up 45 miles every what? Every hour. So x is the number of hours. And y is always, I shouldn't say always, y is usually the total. So in this case, it's the total miles. Now, you can see the points break down in the directions. Part A for each of these, writing the equation is worth 2 points. So you're getting a lot of points for writing these equations. The follow-up question is only worth 1 point. So writing the equations is where you're going to get most of your points on this page. So be very, very careful on your part A's. Remember, you're only given two numbers. One's the changing number, one's the starting number. Then you just put it in for M and B. Alright, part B is still important though. It is going to give you some points. How far will we be after 3 hours? Whoops. So is 3 the total or the number of hours? Hours. So you're plugging it in for x. So rewrite your equation. Y equals 45 times 3 plus 50. Excuse me. Y is already by itself. So don't do inverse operations. Don't try to get the variable by itself. It's already by itself. So you can just do the multiplication. What is 45 times 3? 135. What's 135 plus 50? 185. Okay, so you are going to be 185 miles from home. Any questions on number 11? So for number 12, I rent a car for $100 plus an additional $25 for each day. So what's the starting number? 100. That's where you start. And then it's going up $25 each day, so that's the change. So you're starting at 100, you're changing $25, you're going up $25 for every day. So this is going to be y equals 25x plus 100, where x is the number of what? What is making it go up? Days. Very good. And y, like I said, it's usually the total. If you put total for y, you're usually pretty safe.
Also, you have to write the part.
You don't have to write this part. I just always do so you guys kind of know what these equations mean. But for tomorrow, if you put y equals 25x plus 100, that's enough information for me. But if you don't know what x and y are, you're going to have a really hard time with all the part B's, because that's where you're plugging numbers in. So for this part B, it says, how much will I owe if I keep the car for 5 days? So is 5 the x or the y? The x. So I'm going to have y equals 25 times 5 plus 100. Now, this is very similar to the last one because y is already isolated. It's already by itself. I don't have to use inverse operations. I don't have to undo anything. You can just type this into the calculator. 25 times 5 is 125, and 125 plus 100 is? So 225, what? What are we talking about here?
Car.
Days? You're going to rent a car for almost a year? No, this is dollars. This is how much it costs.
Oh, total.
We plugged in for the number of days. If you plug in for the number of days, your answer usually isn't days. It's rare that X and Y are the same thing. I don't think it ever happens that X and Y are the same thing. Okay, so we're talking about Bob now. Bob is making necklaces to sell at a craft fair. He has 10 already made, and he plans on making 2 additional necklaces each day. So, what's the start? Where's he starting? 10. So that's my B. He has 10 already. And then 2 additional. That's my M. So my equation here is y equals 2x plus 10, where y is the total necklaces and x is the number of what? What is causing them to go up 2 times by 2? 2 necklaces, 2 necklaces, 2 necklaces. Every day. So x is the number of days. Good. Any questions on that? Y equals 2x plus 10 is all you need on yours.
Number of days.
Days, thank you. All right. How long will it take Bob to make 26 necklaces? So is that X or Y?
That's one.
That's Y. That's the total. He wants his total to be 26. So 26 equals 2X plus 10. This is where you do have to do inverse operations. Okay, so we have to undo the adding 10 first. How do you undo adding 10? How do you undo adding? So you're going to subtract 10 from both sides. I'm going to write it off to the left. 26 minus 10 is 16. And that's going to equal 2x because the 10s have gone away. To get x by itself now, you're going to divide by 2. So I'm getting 8. So x equals 8, or 8 equals x. What are we talking about here? So he can make 26 necklaces and 8 necklaces? No, that doesn't quite make sense. It's 8 days. Very good. So good. Think on that label before you just scribble something down. Number 14. This is a tricky one. This says, I have $30 to spend on copies. Each color copy costs 50 cents. That's what $.50, that's 50 cents. So half a dollar. Alright? Write an equation. So which one is my starting number? $30. That's my B. And then every time I make a copy, it's changing by 50 cents. So y equals 0.5. You can put the 0 or not. It's not really important. X plus 30. Does anyone agree with this? Have any thoughts? What are you guys doing? Let's define X and Y. So X is Y is your total dollar amount, right? And X represents the number of copies. Now, this is one of those weird ones, right? Because every time you make a copy, are you getting more money or less money? You're getting less, right? You're giving your money to someone else. So the total dollar amount for you is going down. How do we show that the change is making the total go down? We make the slope negative. A negative slope means your line is going down. Your y value is going down. So we want this to be a negative 0.5. So if you don't have that, fix it. Alright, so that's why this one's tricky to begin with, because your change is negative. Because your total number is going down. The total dollars you have are going down when you make a copy. Now, part B is also tricky because there's no numbers in it. How many copies can I make before I run out of money? Running out of money means you have a total of what? 0. So we are plugging a 0 in for the y. So 0 equals negative 0.5 x plus 30. Now we need to solve for the x here. So I subtract 30 from both sides. What is 0 minus 30? So I have negative 30 equals negative 0.5x. You're multiplying by negative 0.5 here, so to undo that we need to divide. Can anyone tell me what x equals? A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so we should be getting a positive answer. I think you guys were subtracting. We're dividing. We undo multiplication with division. So can someone tell me what negative 30 divided by negative 0.5 is? It is 60. You can make 60 copies. Now, if you forgot to make the slope negative here, you would be coming up with a negative 60 copies. It's not possible. You don't make them copies, right? That's not, you don't take copies to a store. So, be careful here. If you're ending up with a number that's negative on a word problem, that probably isn't correct. It's not common to get negative answers for word problems. So just be careful on those. Any questions on 14? That was a really tricky one. Alright, let's move on to 15. Number 15 says, I have eaten 500 calories already today. Each snack I eat is an additional 50 calories. So what's my starting number? Yeah, this is where you start. That's your B. And then every snack makes it go up 50, so that's your M. So my equation here is y equals 50x plus 500. Where y again is your total, and what is making your total calories go up? The number of snacks. Very good. Alright, so part B says, how many calories have I eaten if I have 3 snacks? So snacks is your x. So plug 3 in for x, and then do the math to find your y. Y is already by itself, so we don't have to worry about solving for y. It's already solved for y. We just have to simplify the right side. So 50 times 3 is 150, and 150 plus 500 is 650 calories. What are your questions on the word problems? These are not easy. Remember, when you're feeling overwhelmed, just go back to what you know. Y equals mx plus b. Every single problem on this quiz starts with the equation y equals mx plus b. On the back, we're talking about parallel lines. So this says write the equation of the line parallel to the line given with the y-intercept shown. So we want a line that's parallel to this line through this y-intercept. Parallel lines have the same what? Slope. Very good. If you need to sing the song to help you remember, they have the same slope. Yeah. Okay. So we are taking the b that they gave us and the m from the old equation. So the old m here is 1 over 2. That's the one I want. The new b is 4, and then you just write an equation with that information. So y equals 1/2 x plus 4. The 9 is irrelevant. We don't really care where that one hits the y-axis. We just want to make sure we're parallel to it. Parallel to it means they have the same slope. Alright, same thing on number 17. I want this to be my m, but I'm going to use the new b. So y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 5. What's the m on number 18? 1 over 1. Very good. You can just leave it a 1 if you want. So 1 or 1 over 1 is fine. So this is going to be y equals 1x plus a negative 3, so just minus 3. You don't need the 1 if you don't want it. You could actually write it like this. Or, like I said earlier, you could make it 1 over 1 since slope is usually a fraction. Any of those would be fine. You don't need all of them. Just pick your favorite. Questions? Alright, same thing on 19. What is my m? Negative 3. And my b is 0. So y equals negative 3x plus 0. You don't need the plus 0. You can just leave it like that. What's b on 20? B is negative 8. I was trying to trick you and have you say 2. 2's the m. Alright, so I want the m of 2 and I want the b of negative 8. So y equals 2x minus 8. Questions? Any questions? Now you can see in the directions that each one of these is only worth 2 points. So that is a lot. I mean, it adds up to 10 points total. But when you compare it to the graph on the bottom of this page, it doesn't look like a lot. The graph on the bottom is worth 5 points total. Okay, so pay attention to how many points you're getting for each problem. Some people will say like, oh, well, I did the first 5. What's the big deal if I just skip the graph? The graph is worth more points. The harder the problem, the more points it's worth. So don't just feel comfortable that you did 16 to 20 and stop there. You got to finish this page up. Okay, so let's take a look down here. Notice in the directions I underlined 2 different parts because you're doing 2 different things in this problem. You have to write the equation and you have to graph the line. Okay, so I even gave you a space for the equation because I don't want you to forget that part. Okay, so you need to finish this graph with your new line and you need to write your new equation. What 2 things do we need to write an equation? M and B. So I'm given B already, it's right here. I need to find M. When you are given a graph, you can find M using rise over run. What does that mean for this problem? I don't even know. What do I have to do to find rise over run? Yes?
Oh, you go pick the 2 points from the line.
Yeah, pick 2 points. It doesn't matter which 2 points you pick. Just make sure they're an ordered pair. Don't pick a point that's like going to give you some weird fraction or something. So pick where you can definitely tell what the value of the graph is. I picked those 2. And then what do you do? Yeah, to go from here to here, you'd go down 1. So my rise is a negative. And then I go right 1. So I would run 1. So my slope is negative 1 over 1. If you want to write that as just negative 1, you can. But again, we like to keep slope as a fraction. It just makes our lives a little easier. So I'm going to keep it as a fraction when I write this. So y equals negative 1 over 1x. And what's my b? Negative 2. You use the new b from down here. Don't use the b from here or else you'll just be graphing the same line on top of the line that was already given. So once you have the equation, you're going to graph it. We always start our graphs where? M or B? B. So you go to the B value on the y-axis. So I'm going to go to negative 2 on the y. From there, what do I do? Go down 1, right 1. You rise 1, you run 1. But since your rise is negative, we're going down. So go down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1 again. And then connect it with something super straight, like the side of your ID. And then put arrows on the ends. Now, once you have it graphed, it's really easy to check to see if you did it right because the lines will truly be parallel. Remember, parallel lines never intersect. They never cross each other. So if you have two lines that are like going like this, you clearly did it wrong because they're intersecting. Alright, so you can definitely check your work by graphing these. Check out the directions. The graph is worth 3 points. The equation's worth 2 points. So make sure you're doing both parts of this problem. They're both kind of worth a lot. And when you put them together, it's worth 5 points. That's a whole letter grade on a 50-point quiz. Raise your hand if you have any questions.